Destabilizing Rounds is a new perk with Lightfall. And in a few videos now, you've probably heard me say that I'm not quite sold on the perk. Well, today I want to investigate if the perk is actually good or not. Destabilizing Rounds is currently found on 6 different weapons. Nessa's Oblation from Root of Nightmares, Void Slug Shotgun. Harsh Language, a World Drop Void Waveframe GL. Basso Ostinato, the Terminal Overload Void Shotgun. The Season 20 Ritual Weapon, Ecliptic Distaff, which is a glaive. The Warlock Sword Death Razor, and Hero's Burden, the Iron Banner SMG. Hero's Burden is the only primary, so far anyway, that can get the perk. I'm sure we're going to see it in the future on other primary weapons. So what does the perk actually do? It makes it so when you kill an enemy, they explode in a small radius, and anything that explosion hits gets turned volatile. If you think about it, it's basically just the perk Incandescent, but it's purple and has no damage over time. We're also going to be talking about Jolt and Volt Shot in this video, along with Incandescent and Scorch and Ignitions and all that kind of stuff, and comparing these perks a good amount to each other. Before we begin, let me just say that I am disregarding seasonal artifact perks as we go into this discussion. Obviously, Volatile Flow from the artifact is very easy to proc. It's very, very strong, making this perk close to useless during seasons when we have Volatile Flow. Just disregard the artifact for now. We got 2 shotguns, a wave frame, a glaive, a sword, an SMG that can all get this perk. I kind of feel like people are the most excited about this perk on the GL, so we're going to start there, but I kind of go all over the place in the next couple of paragraphs, talking about the weapon, talking about the perk, and doing some comparisons, blah, blah, blah. So I apologize for how disjointed this might feel. What is Destabilizing Rounds' main competition when it's on a wave frame? Chain Reaction, which admittedly only comes on Forbearance, a raid weapon, or Salvager Salvo, which is from Season 13. It's the ritual weapon. Still a really good weapon, though. Chain Reaction is a measly 3-meter radius, less than the 6.5 meters on Destabilizing. However, that is not really as big of a detriment as it may read. Outside of these 2 GLs, your only other competition is Explosive Personality from Season 16. So my thought process here is, if I'm killing a target with my grenade launcher, do I want them to explode and deal a bunch of damage to other stuff, potentially killing them in the process, or do I want them to apply a debuff? In lower end content, does it even remotely matter? No. Chain or Destabilizing, stuff is probably going to die to the grenade shot on its own. You are barely getting value out of either one in stuff that is like seasonal content difficulty or lower, because you just one-shot everything anyway. This is also an issue with something like Volt Shot. You're killing things so quickly that you're not really getting a ton of value, but at least you can target specific higher health enemies with a Volt Shot as opposed to Destabilizing, and you can chain Volt Shot very easily on something like the Icarus SMG. Also, I do realize that the easiest wave frame GL to go get right now is probably Harsh Language, and that a lot of people don't have the choice of getting something like Forbearance or even something like Explosive Personality. In that case, yeah, Destabilizing Rounds, it's not the worst choice that you can make. Something that I feel like has been lost on people is that Volatile is a one-time activation. If you put Volatile on a target and then shoot the target and then they explode from Volatile, Volatile goes away. It doesn't stay there. Volatile Rounds makes it seem like Volatile is just there for a super long time. It's not. It's there for one explosion, and that's it. And this is mainly why I feel like something like Destabilizing Rounds feels not as good as Volt Shot or Incandescent. After going into a Master Loss Sector and seeing what one explosion's worth of damage was, yeah, it's not that great, you know, versus something like Jolt, which not only stays, but can chain a lot of times and is much more easily reapplied. In more endgame content, Volatile is primarily for taking out barrier champions, but only in Volatile Round form. We don't always have Volatile Rounds easily accessible like we do in Season 20. It's a once or twice a year perk as far as I'm concerned. Volatile Rounds themselves are amazing, but when we have to reduce the Volatile experience to applying it in the form of Destabilizing Rounds, the experience can range from still incredibly fun to very obnoxious. If you're playing stuff where there are a lot of enemies bunching up all the time, then yeah, volatile can be really fun. But as we covered earlier, a chain reaction grenade launcher shot will also wipe out all enemies and is also very fun. Also, the grenade launcher itself will probably kill a lot of weak targets to begin with. If you're playing content where enemies spread out a lot, it's much more hassle than it's worth to try to get volatile onto a target with something like harsh language and destabilizing rounds. And again, one volatile proc on one enemy is not really that much damage. It's only when you have a lot of enemies basically clumped up in a ball that volatile can really work its magic. But you can say the same thing about incandescent and volt shot too. Volatile is actually a pretty rare keyword outside of the season artifact. Only recently have there been really any fragments that give you some sort of bonus for using volatile. Cessation gives you void breaches, which for void are class ability energy, and starvation was modified to give devour on void breach pickup or orb of power pickup. But let's not pretend that creating orbs of power are that difficult, where we instead would want or need to make something volatile and then pick up a void breach in order to proc devour. Hunters get some nice bonuses for killing void debuff targets, but if you're a void hunter, there's a pretty high likelihood that you're on Gerfalcon's Hauberk, and you'll find it difficult to not have volatile rounds when using it, making destabilizing a little bit irrelevant there, not completely. Titans have controlled demolition, which can help spread volatile, since the explosion from volatile will spread that debuff to other enemies. But after using controlled demo for a little bit, I wasn't really that impressed with its performance. This testing being done on Neomuna, where enemies actually have some health and some resistance. And Warlocks don't really have any synergy with volatile at all outside of fragments. I'm not saying that the perk is a detriment or anything like that, but volatile doesn't provide the same level of synergy as like solar subclasses, where there are bonuses for killing scorch targets and ignitions do XYZ. There's very little of that for void. There's also little to none for jolt as well, but jolt feels much stronger in potency than volatile on top of all the other things that it has going for it. In fact, it feels so much better than volatile that Bungie is nerfing jolt in season 21. And I couldn't exactly pinpoint why for a while jolt felt so much better than volatile, other than feeling like it did more damage and being able to hit targets farther away. And then I was like, oh, actually that's a pretty good way of putting it, on top of volatile's limited potency. Incandescent has the same drawbacks as destabilizing. If there's nothing around, then the effect is useless. But the difference here is, again, when you do proc Scorch, there are multiple fragments that can boost you when you proc it, and if enough enemies are nearby, it can proc an ignition, which also have their own set of fragments and benefits. The results do end up being pretty similar, though. If you have a bunch of enemies stacked up, they're all going to explode. Incandescent has also been in the game a lot longer. We've optimized its use a bit more, and it shows up on multiple machine guns, which are currently very meta. Perhaps if we see destabilizing on a machine gun in the future, it will follow a similar path and maybe is more accepted. Now, when we pull other special weapons into the mix, you have a bit of an easier time getting volatile to proc, since those weapons are more capable of one-shotting enemies in higher-end content, and therefore actually proccing volatile on other enemies as opposed to just wiping them all out. Nessa's Oblation, Basso Ostinato, maybe the Glaive as well, Distaff. You can jump into a group of enemies, bop one of them, and have volatile spread to everything instantly, no plugging away with a wave frame. And what the GL doesn't have is Repulsor Brace, which Nessa's Oblation does, which means you can chain combo volatile into an overshield, and yeah, you know, that's neat, I guess. You know, Titans have a lot of overshield synergy with that combo, feeding them more ability energy with offensive bulwark. Although I've not personally really been into that playstyle or this weapon loadout, really. And that's only one weapon out of the bunch, and I'm just not in that much of a hurry to throw on a weapon with or without this interaction. It's also not something I'm in a huge hurry to equip in high-level content either. I'd rather just equip for Barons and spam chain reaction shots, and that's because, again, Volatile's explosion on a single enemy is very weak. It's almost like you should use the perk based on the thing that you're doing and having knowledge of enemy spawns. Like, if the enemy spawns are really bad and they're all spread out, you don't want to use Volatile, but if they're all clumped together, then you can use Volatile. But then you could also use just really whatever you want. Hero's Burden is currently the only primary with the ability to get this perk. I suspect that will change in the near future. And honestly, the only real difference I felt here was the fact that I just didn't really switch weapons as much. Like with the shotgun or the glaive, you use the weapon and then you change to a primary to proc Volatile. Hero's Burden is just this primary. It's fine, but nothing really more than that. Death's Razor, the Warlock Sword, with Season 20, can also get Destabilizing Rounds, and I feel pretty much the same about it as I do about the perk on other special weapons, except the effect is dialed up much higher because you can hit things with a sword much faster than you can shoot them with a shotgun. But Volatile or no, you're still probably just going to mash the attack button on these enemies anyway. So, yeah, I think that kind of wraps things up on Destabilizing Rounds. Overall, I'm just not really in a huge hurry to use them in the same way that I am something like Volt Shot or Incandescent. I think the other two are stronger. We know Volt Shot is very strong right now because it's getting nerfed. I'm definitely interested in seeing this perk show up on something like Machine Gun, though. Maybe my opinion will change. Again, it's not like Destabilizing Rounds is a bad perk. I certainly don't think it's bad. But is it good enough to find a way into the kits and the loadouts that I'm currently using without any artifact support? At the moment, no, I don't think they are. Let me know how you're feeling about this perk. Maybe I'm missing something. I don't know, but to me, I'm just kind of like on them. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.